Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. That's an excerpt from a poem that my father-in-law recently shared with me, and it's been on my mind since he shared it with me, because it really resonated with me. I've been making films for most of my life, and I've had trouble being proud of my films for most of my life. And there have been so many times where I make a movie and all these people around me are praising it. They're going, this is great, I loved that, that was an awesome movie, I loved this part. And I'm there going, it wasn't that great. I don't know if I'm that good, actually. Don't do that. Don't do that. I've seen many artists do this, Christian or not. Kind of lowball themselves, act like they're actually not that good, out of risk of wanting to not sound prideful, wanting to stay humble to the point where you're kind of just, ripping on yourself. And I've seen Christian artists do this too because, you don't want to put yourself above God. You don't want to give yourself all the glory. You want to make sure it's all going to God and none of the attention's on you. And those are good things to think about because as a Christian artist, pride is a very susceptible sin, I think, for a lot of people. You see your name at the bottom of a poster or by an art piece, and you're like, oh, that can prop up your ego. That means I'm really good. And, you don't want to go too far in that direction. But I think there's also a line where being humble can go way too far into self-hate. Think of the last time one of your friends made something awesome. Like it was the coolest thing ever. Even if it wasn't perfect, you saw things that could be fixed. They made something really awesome and you want them to know that. Now imagine they go, I'm not that good actually. No. You want to body slam them through a table, right? That's what I want to do because what they're doing is awesome and you want them to know that. The Bible talks all the time about letting your light shine, letting your glory shine, letting your gifts shine. And we recite those a lot and we read them a lot and we think of just the bare bones idea of sharing the Bible with people, sharing your faith with people. And that's true, we should do that. But I think those verses also talk about our gifts, our abilities that God's given us. Because He's given you the ability to make music. He's given you the ability to make films, to paint, to do all these awesome artistic things. And He wants you to use them. He wants you to be proud of them because He gave those to you. He did not give you the love of cameras, the love of filmmaking for you to hide it. You know who does want you to do that? Who wants you to self-loathe and not think you're actually that good is the devil. He sees how awesome you are. He sees how cool you are at making things, and he wants to snuff those out. He wants those to not be used because he sees how powerful they are and how awesome they are and how much of an effect your art can have on people. It is not a sin to be proud of your gifts. The same way it is not a sin to love yourself. Now, obviously, loving yourself too much or being too proud of your gifts can lead to sin. But again, I think we're too far a little bit on the humble side to the point where it's just self-hate and self-loathing. And I think we need to bring it back a little bit more this way. You playing small, like the poem said, does not serve anybody. It does not serve the world, okay? I promise you, when you start actually loving your art, actually appreciating the good elements in it, knowing that God has a purpose for you, He's given you these abilities for a reason, it just feels better too. One of my closest friends is also a filmmaker, and within the first couple months of meeting, I was sitting in on watching him edit his newest film, and he was editing a fight scene. It was this big whole thing, and he was really happy and really excited about it. He was showing me all the parts he was excited about. He was inserting these cool punch sound effects, and he's like, "Oh yeah, look at this! I love this shot." And in my mind back then, I was like, "Ugh, this guy's really full of himself." This guy kind of thinks highly of himself, is a little prideful. But looking back on it, no, he wasn't. He was just a really healthy, well-rounded artist who was very proud of the thing he made. Looking back on that experience, that's a really beautiful thing, to be excited about what you're making, to be proud to show what you're making to people, to be just so pumped and full of energy, filled with spirit about it. As artists, we can hyperfixate on the negative things about our art, the mistakes we made, we zero in on those, but you can do both at the same time. When my senior capstone film was about to release, I really hated it. I really didn't like it. I thought there were so many flaws in it. I was really scared to show people because I had been sitting on it for a year, and I just had a year to contemplate all the things I didn't like about it. But then when the showcase happened and people were giving me all this praise, how much they loved it, that kind of reminded me that there are good things in it too. Like now when I look back on the film, yes, there are flaws with it. There's some writing stuff that's not that great. There's some things that are a little unclear. But there's some awesome shots, and I think the tension building is really, really good. And those two things can be weighed equally. It's cool to love the things you make. It's really fun. It's because God loves what you make, and I think we should remember that. I'm mostly making this video for myself because I think I need to hear this most of the time. I'm also making this because I'm a huge advocate for Christian artists, Christian lay people artists. There are a lot of Christian circles and a lot of Christian spaces that don't view visual art as practical or necessary. And I highly disagree with them. I think that's a very, very wrong thing to say. I think Christian visual art is necessary. It is vital. But before we can argue that, we first need to view ourselves as necessary and vital. If you can't view what you're doing as necessary and important, how can detractors? Right? Like, it's going to be hard to convince them that visual arts is important when anytime someone praises what you're doing, you're like, ah! And that's important to think about because what we're doing is important and beautiful. I think that's all I got. I'll probably edit this later and come up with 5 more points of what I want to say here, but I should probably cut it short. That's all I got.